Has life gotten off track? Are you looking for some inspiration to be a better dad? People say all the time, I'd die for my kids. Okay. But would you live for them? Actually live? Get yourself healthy? Make better choices? Eliminate distractions? Would you lead them more intentionally? Would you get sober? Take better care of yourself, physically and mentally. You'd only have to die once. Your kids don't need you to die for them. They need you to live. Have you thought about getting sober, but you just didn't know where to start? If so, welcome to the Domestic Dad Podcast, your go-to destination for candid discussions on journeys into sobriety, parenting, and personal growth. I'm Nick Barnett, founder of the Domestic Dad Project. I've been a dad since I was 18 years old. I'm also a trauma survivor, an alcoholic, divorced, happily remarried, hardworking, humbled by life, domestic dad. On this podcast, you'll find interviews with people who have walked that path, including myself, coaches, mentors, and pastors who can help guide you on your journey. You're going to need resources and inspiration. You can find that here. This is the community for you to lean into so you can start living life as a domestic dad. So let's grab a mop and start cleaning up the mess. Ready?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. Ben Schwartz, thank you for joining the Domestic Dad Podcast.
No, you're welcome. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, man. Absolutely. Dude, this has been a long time coming. I just want to preface this with a little bit, okay?
Sure.
So there was a point in time where we worked together at the same agency, and I really looked up to you. And you sent out an email, and it struck me as one of the most powerful things that I'd ever read in my life. Mm-hmm. And it took me from looking up to you as in the role that you were in to looking up to you as a man. And your consistency in how you have lived your life since I read that email has been remarkable. And I know we don't talk every day, and we probably should more, but I'm just really excited to do this with you. So
Thank you.
I really appreciate you joining me, man.
Yeah, you didn't prep me for that, for that opening. So that email was when I came to faith.
Yeah.
So when God intersected in my life, I'd ruined it all at that point. I'd ruined everything in my life. I ruined my integrity. And we'll get into some of the addictions and all the good stuff. But that email was when God intersected with me, and then for whatever reason, I shipped it to broadcast mud advertising, and here came the divide. And it was a divide I had no idea was coming. I was on fire for Christ. He had just saved me. He had just intersected in my life. And here comes Ben in all of his naiveness, fires out an email about how God has saved me, and I was a sinner and all these things. Now, this was not the point where I became a man, but it was the point where I became Christ's son.
Yeah.
And I had a lot of learning to do. But that's interesting you bring that up. I haven't thought about that email in a long time. Some people bring it up, but a lot of people don't know me from back when I was, but before I was saved.
Yeah.
You know, when I was God of myself, you know, and you got to see some of that. And I'm sure I've hurt you in some ways. I bet I've talked behind your back. I bet I've done all the things Ben Schwartz 1.0 would have done back in the day because I didn't care about people. I just cared about me.
Yeah.
Who was number one? It was Ben Schwartz. And what do I need to do to keep me number one? But thank you for that. I appreciate that opening and that email reminder.
Yeah.
And I think that was a sweet moment, but it was certainly one that divided the company for a minute and got me into a lot of trouble with upper management at the time. And I was in closed door meetings because of that email telling me that I was going down the wrong path. So
weird.
It was interesting.
Yeah, I think you even signed it Ben the Sinner, which was, again, remarkable. It was remarkable. So, okay. So there's that. Dude, I just want to, okay. So you know how I start these things. Tell me what childhood was like for you growing up.
Yeah. So I've listened to some of your podcasts. I think everyone's going to have a mixed bag. You know, what you're bringing in are people who have become addicted to something.
Yeah.
And so I've often thought about why do I have that in my DNA? Was I beat as a kid? Was it a divorce? Do people react different to certain childhood circumstances? Well, I'll give you mine. I mean, my childhood wasn't really that bad. I mean, there was plenty of ugliness, but all I can really identify was the hurt that I really had so my dad was married to another woman and he was a womanizer. And so my dad had 5 kids with Glenda. My mom had been previously married and had a daughter, Allie. And then those two ended up, from what I've heard, my dad had an affair against Glenda with Carol, my mom, and had me. And so here they are pregnant with me. My dad is caught between, I mean, there's really no way to lie your way out of that one. I mean, so they ended up choosing each other. Glenda and him get a divorce. And then I have 6 half brothers and sisters. So there's dysfunction everywhere. And what I've seen is not one marital couple that have been a fully role model couple or what a marriage should look like. But I wasn't beaten. I wasn't hit. I didn't see some things I think other people have seen in their life. But the divorce when I was 9, I just remember the U-Haul pulled up. No one had really told me that the divorce was coming. And then here are my 2 heroes, my 2 brothers. These are my heroes. They just get in this truck and they drive away. I don't remember what I was thinking. I remember I walked into the house and my grandma, who had lived with us and was a big, I think, proponent for the demise of the marriage because she had lived with us and had some financial she had a financial one-up on my father and reminded him daily of that, made him feel less of a man. So they drive off, gone. And I'm left with just my sister, my mom, and my grandma. But I don't remember life being, my mom is the most caring woman. She is an amazing woman. She raised me through everything. But there's just something maybe there that started my quest, I guess, after high school is truly when things started to deteriorate, because at that moment I started making my own decisions, and those decisions had catastrophic consequences. Yeah. They had consequences at the time, and then those consequences started to stack on one another. And I'll explain more about that. But my childhood wasn't really that bad in comparison to if you scale them, and we like to scale sin. Some sins are worse than others because we're humans. We want to say that,
my trauma was so much worse than yours. Correct. Or you hadn't been through what I've been through.
Correct.
Those types of things, right?
Right. But I've seen people whose trauma is worse than mine be much better human being in life than what I did in my 20s and 30s.
Yeah.
And I've seen people have the most privileged kids. The one thing, Nick, that I think that I can identify as a correlation is parenting. Mm-hmm. Is parenting with a capital P. Because kids who are unparented, I think a divorce, what that does is starts a harder process for a kid to be fully parented than what it would be if 2 parents didn't really get along very well, but were still under the same household. Because when a kid is unparented, then they understand how to leverage they understand how to leverage households and what to get what they want and to have their feelings met in ways in which are unhealthy. And they learn how to do it in very clever ways, and they will do it. So when you have a divorce happen, just know that will be probably the starting foundation for not that, hey, you're going to be an addict, but you probably will have a lot better opportunity to create your own decisions and be the God of yourself, more so than if you were parented by a mom and a dad in the same household.
I think you're 100% correct on that. It's the first fracture in the integrity of the family, and it is the repercussions of that. I see it with some of my own kids. I've seen some of that where they can manipulate over here, but they can't manipulate over here. And that causes some kind of sneakiness, right?
Yeah.
Because I'm the product of a divorced home, and to your point, I think it correlates.
Yeah. That's the only thing I can think of that happened to me. That would be something that, man, I can say I had some pain in that divorce. Now I saw pornography at a young age. You know, my brothers, I remember we found some pornography in the ditches walking home from school when I was probably 5, 6 years old, maybe a kindergarten. And I was exposed to that. I knew where they hid them. So I don't know to what extent that started into the pornography world. It didn't help.
Yeah.
It started to skew my vision towards what women look like, what they are supposed to do.
Yeah.
With sexual experiences. You know, all in all, my childhood was not the problem. When I became Ben unfiltered, Ben unaccountable, is when the problem happened.
Yeah.
And it started in college.
Yeah.
I didn't drink till college. I didn't have sex till college. I didn't smoke weed till college. When I got to college, I started opening myself up and it all felt good. I started grabbing the world and it felt good. But here was the catch. It was temporary. Every time I had sex with someone, it was like I conquered something and it felt really good. Man, she likes me. And I've had this ego boost, this dopamine high, and it was boom, boom. But I was always met with this low portion at the end, because then it was temporary. I was chasing temporary highs and it just got worse. So college started and I was in relationships, but I would quickly cheat on them. I would get caught cheating. Shame started piling on my shoulders. People started whispering about Ben Schwartz, the player. I was starting to drink heavily. I was mixing up a few drugs here and there. It wasn't an addiction yet, but the dopamine highs I was getting was starting the addiction process. And what I had to later realize, Nick, is that I had an addictive personality. Yeah. So here we go.
Yeah.
You know, here we go.
Yeah. Wow. So that's when you realized that there was a, did you realize? Okay. So yeah, let me rephrase that. Did you realize it at the moment
that I was an addict?
Yeah.
No.
When did you realize that?
Because I could shut it off. You know, Monday through Friday was okay. I would hit a party once in a while, but I didn't feel the need to drink like later in my life, where I'll explain some of the deeper addictive parts of what happened. But here's what did happen. So through cheating in relationships, through losing integrity in different ways, and through an addictive personality, I started drinking heavily. But this is the first time I can identify something extremely unique to my addictions that most men do not have, is I started to be a bulimic.
Really?
I started to be a bulimic. I was throwing up all of my food. I would go and eat at restaurants, and then I would sneak to the bathroom and I would throw up all of it. I started having this shame of weight, but it wasn't really my weight. My weight was fine. I was 180 pounds and I was young.
Yeah.
But I thought it was weight. But what I was losing was control of my life. It was the beginning of the control that I was losing in my life. I didn't know how to stop the spiral. I wasn't confiding in any adults that I trusted that gave me any wisdom. I blocked my mom out. My dad was in Minnesota. I was not confiding in him on any wisdom. I was too ashamed to tell anybody. And so I started throwing up over and over and over for years. That was the first true addiction that started, was actually bulimia. But it would also have an effect with alcohol. So when I would drink, it would be more prone to throw up. And so I'd sneak off to bathrooms. I'd feel ashamed. I'd wait. I mean, you have to understand what people have to go through to throw up. You go in a bathroom, there's 3 people in there. You can't throw up.
No.
You have to wait.
Yeah.
You sit there and you wait and you wait and you wait and you listen for the door. Then you turn on the water sometimes so that it muffles, or you hit the button on the toilet so that little time frame that you have when the water flushes and there's that loud noise.
That's when it goes.
You can quickly throw up in that little time frame. Super fast. If you can get your finger down there quick enough, boom, you throw up. And then by the time that the water settles, then you can throw up. So that addiction had started. I was losing integrity. I was cheating on women, and I was starting to develop this ugliness. And then college ended. And when college ended, I felt this immense feeling of loss because college was so good to me. I was king at co-college. I had so much fun at co-college. I cheated my way through co-college. I have a degree that I never earned. I was a cheater. I was all these things, but I manipulated it to my favor, and I loved it. It was all I knew.
You had control.
I had control of it. I was throwing up, drinking, doing all the things, but I had control, what I thought was control. And then I felt this loss after college of what am I going to do now with my life? I have a psychology degree I didn't earn. I can do nothing with. I have a debt of $40K. And so I would decide I'm going to go back to school. So I go up to UNI. That's what brings me here to this very city is UNI grad school. I had someone write the paper, entry-level paper for me, got accepted. So I'm in UNI. I'm doing okay. I'm lost, but I'm okay. More relationships here and there. I'm couch surfing a little bit. I don't know where I'm going to stay. I'm working at Dillard's selling shoes, and I'm partying. I'm doing just things. I'm not helping the world. I'm lost, but I'm in school. So I eventually get kicked out of grad school. I start falsifying hours that I'm at practicum teaching kids because I needed a paycheck. I'm actually working at Dillard. So I started cheating, writing hours in, and they catch me. So they bring me in this meeting and they say, look, we're going to kick you out. And I got caught. And they said, you need to leave the program for a year, get counseling, and then we'll welcome you back if you do those things. I never went back. Shortly thereafter, I ended up at Mud Advertising, started that gig. But the alcohol was starting to come on at this point.
Yeah.
I got kicked out of grad school. I'm starting to drink heavier. Porn addiction. That never went away. That was through all of it. I would watch porn with guys at the dorms. I would watch porn in the dark and masturbate. I would watch porn all the time. Porn, bulimia. And then here comes alcohol. And alcohol was going to feed the worst of me. It was going to feed the worst of me in the next few years as things would truly spiral into a really dark place. And you can relate to that dark place.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, it was just, here's what it feels like or what it felt like for me. If I did something that I was so ashamed of, I could drink and it would help me forget about it. And get to a point where it was beyond me and I didn't have to deal with the regret anymore. So I just stuffed it down with alcohol and never dealt with it. And you cannot grow from that. You cannot.
Yeah, it was. I mean, that's just a great way to put it. The shame.
It took me such a long time to learn that. Like if you could take one thing from me, know that alcohol is not going to solve your problems. It's not going to help you forget because at some point, it's like pressing a beach ball underwater, right? Yep. Like you can hold it down there, but at some point you're going to have to take your hand off of that beach ball and it's coming up.
Yeah. You know, my wife and I finally took our honeymoon. 11 years. Took us to take our honeymoon. So we went to this island.
Why'd you hold out for so long?
So when we got married, she didn't have any PTO. She just started her job at the hospital and she didn't have any time. So we ended up not taking a honeymoon right away, but we got a kid right away. We got pregnant. So that started the whole spiral of your lockdown.
Yeah.
So this is about a month ago and we're flying the long flight over to Portugal, and I'm watching Lord of the Rings, Return of the King.
Yep.
And I'm sitting here watching this movie, and I'm starting to think about, for some reason, addiction. Now, I'm a geek, and bear with me, but I'm sitting there watching this ring, and how it's described as Sauron poured all of his cruelty and his malice and his suffering into this ring that would be desirable by men. And what you find is that at first like any great addiction, it's fun. So when they first grab the ring, they see it. And what do they call it? My precious.
Yeah.
Our addiction is our precious.
Yeah.
It's dear to us. And it can, but you see through the movie how it consumes the person slowly. Because at first it's fun. And they put the ring on, they disappear. And no one can see who they are. No one can see them. They're in the shadows. So really now you have a person in the shadows, and they can take this ring on and off, just like you described, using alcoholism or alcohol to suppress momentarily. But that ring has to come back off, because when the ring was on, then the darkness was coming for them. So they would take the ring back off. So at first it was awesome. And then it slowly becomes what Frodo says is a burden. This is a burden. This is pain. This is it's hurting me. It's changing me. And then you see Smeagol, who had it for 500 years, and it rotted him out.
Oh yeah, that poor kid.
That poor dude got rocked by the ring. So I'm thinking about this, and I'm like, man, that's so similar. And then I'm watching more of the movie, and at the very end, Frodo's standing on the ledge. And it seems so easy for him to just, if he tosses the ring, the world becomes good again. Nick, how many times have someone reached out to you through your life and said, Nick, you got a problem. Nick, I know what it is. Nick, just grab my hand, Nick. And for you to turn at them and do what Frodo did and says, no, this is my precious. And he doesn't throw the ring into the lava at that point. Then the movie progresses, and he ends up, the ring falls. He is on the ledge. And here's Samwise, the one who loves him most. And he tells him, don't you let go. Don't you let go. Give me your hand. And he, with his last ounce of effort, grabs this dude's hand and he pulls him up, just like we need someone to pull us up. And it is Jesus Christ who did that for me. Yeah. He was sitting there, and I'm on that ledge, and I was unable in my own strength to throw that ring off into the lava. It took Smeagol to bite the dude's finger off before he was willing to part with that ring. And before you're willing to part with your addiction and all of your wisdom and sovereignty and all of you have an opportunity at the very end to throw it away, and you will not, because you don't have power over yourself. Just like Frodo didn't have power over him, he kept it. So Samwise rescued him, and then the climax at the end, where I could not believe that this was all epiphany to me in a dumb movie. Bilbo, the very end. Everything's lovely. They bring old Bilbo to the elves, and he's in a wagon at the end, and he's with Frodo, and he's leaning on his shoulder, and he's sitting there, and he goes, hey, do you still have that ring I gave you? And Frodo has that weird look in his eye, and he goes, no, uncle, I don't. And he says, I wish I could just wear that ring one more time. Yeah. So
that's addiction.
The addiction is that's addiction.
100%.
To the even saved, to the victorious, to the Nick 2 years sober, to the Ben Schwartz 9 years sober in November. Don't think for 1 second that we do not want to wear that ring one more time. That this fight is a daily fight. It is a daily war.
Yeah, I think this might break some people's hearts because it's hard to hear. But even today, I still wish I could drink. I do. I mean, there's a desire there, mm-hmm. But I never want to deal with the mess that it created in my life for that long. I can't go. I couldn't let it. So, yeah.
And that's real. And that's raw. And I came into this podcast today in this room, and I'm going to share hope with people, and I'm going to give them the solution that was given to me that has a 100% rate of solving an addiction. It's like the choice of the blue pill versus the red pill, but
Yeah, good movie references happening.
Right. But what was real to me, and I tell my wife, I have to hold myself accountable because I still to this day have that desire to drink. But here's the greatest part. I have someone in my corner that is so much stronger than me, that knew the sin in my heart. This person also had beat every sin known to man. And it says somewhere in some book that no temptation has overtaken you that's not common to man. God is faithful. He will not allow you to be tempted beyond your abilities, but with your temptation, provide you a means of escape so you may be able to endure it. Someone wrote that in some book somewhere. It happens to be the most published book, the most read book in the world, and it's the Bible. So if you don't mind, let me tell you how.
Yeah, I'm in.
How the solution. Everyone wants to know the solution. And I had a guy call me. This is a painful part. And you were telling me upstairs before this podcast of some pain that you endured of people who didn't win the battle. Not everyone wins this, and it hurts. But I had a friend, Chad, call me up, and I was posting about Jesus and my sobriety and all these things. He calls me up and said, Ben, how'd you do it? And I said, Chad, I want to meet with you and have some coffee. And he did. And I said, hey, I don't think you're going to like my solution right away. I said, I got intersected with Jesus Christ. He changed my entire life. And then after he changed me and revealed himself to me and gave me eyes to see and ears to hear and gave me all this vision of what sin truly is and how what he had done for me on the cross, he started to work in my heart. And it wasn't right away. I drank for 1.5 years after I gave my life to Christ in the basement every single day. As my shame continued and my sin struggle continued, he finally intersected and provided that power to be sober. And I said, I don't think you're going to like that answer. And he was an agnostic. And he said, you're right, I don't. I was hoping you'd tell me AA. And there's nothing against these programs. These programs help people, but what they did identify, even to AA and all the other ones, is that you need a higher power.
Yeah.
You can't rely on yourself. Yourself is the most pitiful portion and the most worthless of all reliable things, because you will defend your own sin till your grave.
Yeah.
You'll defend yourself. You'll defend your decisions. You'll lie through your decisions. You will be a manipulator to all the people around you, because that's what we do.
Addiction is a liar and a thief.
Yeah, 100%. And so I told him that, and I'd met with him. I kept pursuing this guy and kept pointing to Jesus. Chad, just come with me to church. Church is just 4 walls, but come with me. Hear the gospel. And I kept sharing it to him. And the guy passed away. He passed away a month after I'd met with him. They found him unresponsive, and he had passed away in his own home. His son had found him. He was dead.
How old was he?
And I couldn't get to him. He was in his 40s. Yeah. And his body gave out. He didn't end his own life, but his body gave out because of alcohol. I had another guy at work who did end his own life because of alcohol. His wife had threatened him to say, look, I can't do this anymore. Your kids can't see you drunk anymore. So this is going to end. He went, drank himself to death, and he died. So what we're speaking of is something so real.
It happens every day.
And it happens every day. And the world can't understand why. And I was telling you before this podcast, they won't understand. That's why addicts want to follow other addicts, because they know the prison. They know the shackles. They know what you feel the minute you wake up to when your mouth starts foaming for that drink at 5 o'clock, or whenever your timetable has been set for your body to need it. Your mind is warped by it. You plan trips around it. I was scared to go anywhere for a day because I knew I needed the booze, and I didn't want to be caught. I didn't want to be a fraud. I didn't want anyone else to know my problem and my addictions and my pornography I was watching and my throwing up. I didn't want anybody to know. But I your whole life is surrounded around it, and you will forfeit everything, including your own life. You will forfeit your wife. You will forfeit your marriage. You'll forfeit your kids. You will forfeit your money, your finances, and your life for the power of addiction.
Yeah. For euphoria. Chasing that euphoria.
Because I try to.
Yeah.
So let's talk about hope, though.
Yeah.
Now, the people listening to this can tell me if this is a coincidence. You can, with the worldly wisdom, tell me if this story is a coincidence. So I'm down at the rec center. I walk by the desk. I play racquetball down there 3 days a week. At this point, I had dissolved a marriage, ruined it, hated my marriage, hated my life. I was recently divorced. My life is pretty out of control at this point, but I get stopped by Paula, and I remember her name to this day. Paula stops me, hands me a number at the rec center, and says, "Hey, this guy moved to town. He says he's a racquetball player, wants to play. He says he's pretty good. So I see you play every day, Ben. Would you call this guy? You want to play him?
Yeah.
I don't play singles. I play doubles, but I called this guy, and his name was Paul. And dude, I like this guy. He was awesome. I mean, he was kind of like me. He was a good talker. We had a good jar, back and forth. We were really competitive. I loved it. I mean, we were playing for 3 months every Tuesday, Thursday, and this guy comes up to me and he hands me a pamphlet. Now, what is this, Paul? I'm starting a church, Ben. What do you mean you're starting a church? You're going to a church? No, I'm a pastor.
3 months he doesn't tell you he's a pastor?
3 months. This dude kept it a secret. He said, I didn't want you
Pastors
to think of me
do
any
that.
different. Yeah, they're tricky.
Yeah.
They
Covert.
Yeah. And I said, yeah, I'll go. I want to support you, because he built a friendship with me, and I wanted to go. So I go to this church. It's in a middle school. They don't even have a church yet. I sat in the far back chair right by the exit, because I was like, if this is a cult, I am out. Sure enough, music starts playing. Music's really good. Here's people with their arms are in the air. And I'm like, yep, that's a cult. I'm from a Lutheran church that I went once a month. They don't do that. This is people worshiping with their arms up. This is a cult. But I stuck it out, and I come back periodically. But then the questions start coming from me. Paul's pursuing me, and he's there for me. He wants to go on runs with me. I mean, he's out at mud running around the lake with me. And I start asking these deep philosophical questions and these problems I had with God. God, I mean, how does God allow people halfway across the world that never hear the word of Jesus Christ? How does he allow them to just perish and go to hell? What about the flood? Like, how can that flood even be possible? Where are the dinosaurs, Paul, in the Bible? Like, where are all in my mind, the churches, they just want your money. Every time I've been to a church, it wasn't 5 seconds, and here comes an envelope, and they want your money. So he keeps answering the questions as best he could, but he kept loving on me. He kept loving on me. He kept inviting me in, and I went to his connection group. My wife, or my girlfriend at the time, which is now my wife, wanted nothing to do with this man. She goes, Ben, I don't want anything to do with what you're doing with the church. She went once in a while because she loved me, but she didn't want anything to do with it. And one day, I'm watching a video of Billy Graham. He sends it to me. He's been pursuing me. And I'll never forget this day. I'm weeping at work. And it happened. All my shame. All of it. All of my... everything I did wrong to everybody. All the people I cheated on. All the marriages that I broke up. Everything just came down, and Christ said, I got you. I got it all. Ben, I was on a cross for you. You can't bring me anything, Ben, but your pile of shame and your sin. You can't be righteous for me. And he took it all, man. This guy, he was spit on. He was beaten. He took all the shame for me. And it all came down. And I was waiting for this moment my whole life, because I couldn't be the God of myself anymore. It was too painful. I had to surrender. I surrendered it right there that day. I said, Jesus, please take me. Do whatever you want with me, because my decisions are so bad. They're so bad. And I've wrecked my life. I've ruined relationships around me. No one can trust a word out of my mouth. I need a start. I need the button. I need a fresh start. And I surrendered it that day, and I saw the world. It changed me. I stopped swearing that day. I walked around and the world looked different to me. And it was the start of the journey. Jesus intersected me.
Let's go.
At that minute of that day, and I was forever changed. I was never the same Ben, ever. And I wrote that email shortly after. And I started to be on fire for Jesus Christ. I was still a drunk. I still looked at porn. I knew nothing about addictions and what he was going to do later in my life. But I knew I needed a savior. I knew I needed somebody else to carry the burden of my precious for me, because I couldn't do it anymore. I surrendered it. So I come home, I tell Angela, and she's like, dude, I don't know about this. This is not, that's awesome. I was one of the 99, and he came for me. I love that picture, man. He came for me. And so I bring Angela to a connection group or two. They're pursuing her, Nick. 2 weeks later, I get a call at work. She's bawling. Ben, I'm at home. I'm on the ground. And I just gave my life to Jesus Christ. This was 1 week before she told me that Paul Sabino is not welcome in our home. I do, quote unquote, I do not want him to come to our house. I'm not down for this religion thing.
She wasn't having it.
She wasn't having it. He came into her life, and he dropped her to her knees, and she surrendered to him and was bawling and said, I gave my life to Jesus Christ. And in the moments after that, we lost friends.
Yeah, you will.
We lost family.
You will.
They looked at us like we joined a cult. They looked at us because the world looks at people who love Jesus Christ with malice. They look at you
because you're moving away from the things that control them,
that they love and they covet. You look different. So we lost friends. We lost family, and it hurt. But we stayed looking at that lamb that you gave, that your picture is showing right now. He was the only slaughter. He was the only sacrifice. Leading up to that, they were slaughtering animals, the best animals they could, in atonement for their sin. But nothing could be the full atonement of your sin except for the one man who would come off the throne of heaven to be slaughtered by men, rejected by men, and could take your place. And that is where the addictions are surrendered to him. I couldn't do it. I tried. I was sober 6 months. I've sober 1 year. I came back to the drink. I never stopped looking at porn. He came into my life and he wrecked it in such a great way. And so the journey started. My hope, Nick, for everyone here in this podcast, and all your journeys will be different. I will never, ever say one bad word about a program like AA or any program that wants to help people who have addictions and know the pain and suffering. But for me personally, and I believe for you too, and a lot of people that listen to this, the Chad Whalens of the world, the people where Jesus came in and clubbed him upside the head and said, I want you. And not only that, I want the sinner. I want the guy and girl who is ugly and dark, because that's what I came here for.
Yeah.
I came to sit with sinners. I had dinner with sinners and I was mocked for it. But that was who I came for. I didn't come for people who didn't need a doctor. I came for people who needed a doctor and needed someone who needed to fix their problem of sin if they just surrender. What a free gift.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that picture that I showed you, I'll throw it up, but it's a picture of a lamb, and it's turned away. It's kind of looking at you, and it's stuck in the mud. It's cold. It's wet. It's all by itself, and it's like, man, I'm really in a pickle. I'm really in a pickle.
Preach.
And it's not until you realize that you're in that terrible place, and you can turn around and look and see that he's been chasing after you the entire time. And it took me all of my life until I was nearly 40 years old to realize that he had been chasing me. And then going back today and thinking about all the times that I narrowly escaped death, that I could have been steamrolled, that I could have been in prison, that I could have gone to jail, that I could, like, all of these things that could have happened to me, that maybe he was right there with me. You know, you don't know it until you turn around and see that you got somebody looking for you.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's crazy. You know, so for you, it just happened very abruptly in that moment, and were you able to put down everything at that time?
No, not at all. So when Christ intersected in my life, when you're a baby believer, when you surrender everything to Christ, just know that when you surrender it,
he comes, even though the enemy comes harder for you.
The enemy will come. But it says in the Bible that when you give your life to Christ and you are one of his, that Satan no longer can have you. He will attack you. He will want you to believe that you're down, you're kicked. He will want to keep an addiction over you. He wants the shame to continue. Mm-hmm. He wants the porn and the dirty secrets to continue. Christ doesn't come and eradicate all of that immediately. He saves your soul. He allows you to have a relationship with the living God who created you. And then he'll give you the understanding that your body is not your own, that it is a temple of the Holy Spirit given to you by God.
Yeah.
And that you are now not to take care of your body as your own, but to let God take care of your body. You are not only to look at your possessions and your money as their own, God owns those things. So when you surrender to him, you will start surrendering to all things eventually. So it's the greatest part of it is the conviction. So when the Holy Spirit comes in you, you give your life to Christ, he gives you a helper. It's the Holy Spirit. It's the Trinity, 3 in 1. God, the Father, Jesus, and the Holy Spirit. Yeah. So Holy Spirit comes down and it is inserted inside you. You are one of his. You now have God inside you. Isn't that awesome? You have God inside you. God is inside you, and he starts helping you. He's your helper. So when you start going and you hear sermons talking about drunkards, and you hear sermons talking about the pride you have in your heart, and you feel the conviction starting to mount, it makes you change. Yeah. You start to turn from your sin. That's what the whole repentance part is. It's you turn from your sin and you go the other way. And we talked about the world doesn't like that.
No,
they don't like that. So when you turn from your sin, you're going to look different, right? So eventually, 1.5 years later, I've been drinking every night. My sin was starting to become now my wife's, because she was covering for me. She knew it was there. And she went to Paul Sabino. Here's another coincidence. She goes to Paul and says, Paul, Ben's got a problem. And he says, see if he'll tell me first. But he's got a drinking problem. 2 days later, I'm in the court. 2 days, I've been playing with him for 2 years.
Yeah.
Or 1.5 years. That was the same week I decided to tell Paul Sabino I had a drinking problem. And he goes, I know. Angela told me. And I told her that. There's just the coincidence.
That's a weird,
so crazy.
That's some intervention right there. That's God doing something for you.
So
did you always know that you had a drinking problem? Like, were you like, hey man, I'm an alcoholic, or were you kind of one of those people that were like, I can drink and I'm like, and I can handle it, and then it became a problem?
I learned before my surrender to Jesus, I learned before that I had a problem, because I couldn't go a day without it. A good gauge for someone to find out if you have a problem is, can you quit for a month?
Yeah.
Can you just stop drinking for a month? Most people should. They should be able to stop drinking. Yeah, no problem. And they go about their day. That was not me. So another red flag is the moderation part. I can't have 2. I can't have a sip. I can't have 3. I want 12.
Yeah.
Because I want the buzz and I want the feeling of, like you described, of suppressing something and having the world go away for a short period of time until the morning. And then would wake up, and then the cycle would go all over again. But I didn't really identify. I knew I was a drunk probably in my first marriage.
Yeah.
I knew I had a problem. I didn't want to admit it at that point, but I knew it was there. And that admittance is so key. Because if you truly just take a step back in your pride and you look at Samwise with his hand down saying, just grab it, and people around you, and you just, in your pride, please look at somebody around you and say, I've got a problem. And if they look at you in any judgmental way, know that they're the biggest hypocrite, because what's in their heart too is a problem. It may not be your problem, may not be addiction, but know that they have sin.
Yeah.
And they have no bearing to look at you any other way but with compassion and a thank you for finally admitting something that is so hard for us drunks and porn addicts and bulimics and drug addicts. It's so hard for us within our pride, because we want to keep that addiction going at all costs, to look at somebody and say, I've got a problem.
Yeah.
Our world tells you don't have problems. Nick, you're supposed to be a strong man. You're supposed to be a strong man that doesn't
suppress it.
It shouldn't have a weakness.
Yeah. Yeah. You don't tell anybody that.
Right.
Don't tell anybody. The world will tell you, don't tell anybody that you have weakness. Hide that.
Yeah.
Keep that to yourself. Pretend it doesn't exist.
Absolutely.
Only so you can suppress it and try to hide from it. But strong men, they need help too.
All men have a sin problem.
We were born, but that's a human condition.
Yeah, you're born with that. So you got 2 things that are going to happen in your life. You're going to be born with sin, and you're going to die eventually. So between your birth with sin and your death, that you have no idea when is going to be, there's a decision that has to be made sometime in that pocket. And you have to decide on Jesus. Is he the Son of Man?
Yeah. Somebody told me one time, said, how did he put it? He was talking about his kids. He said, I don't know if my kid is going to be a professional athlete someday. I don't know if they're going to be a doctor, a lawyer, a salesperson like you and I. I don't know. I don't know what you're going to be when you grow up, but I know for a fact that in the end, that you're going one of 2 places, and it's either heaven or it's hell. And it is my job to get you to the right place as a father. That's what you got. And the only thing that we as men even have a chance at taking with us to heaven, if done correctly, is our kids. That's the only thing you got a shot at bringing with you.
Wow.
And I felt that was so powerful to me, because it really, when I heard that, it really made me realign on a few things, right? My faith was already there, but it really helped change the trajectory of how I spoke to my children. Instead of from a advice dad, here, you need to do this, you need to do this. No, that is not how you make disciples. You make disciples by showing them how Jesus would walk, by being an example, show them a good role model.
Yeah.
What that looks like.
Yeah.
So to your point, at some point in our lives, we have to make a decision, and it's either you believe or you do not. And that decision hinges on the rest of eternity for you. That's how I look at it.
Yeah.
I have a 13-year-old son right now. He's in 7th grade, And he's been going through it, man. You know, he's at school and like, you know, I got to have these shoes. I got to get my hair cut this way, you know, and all of this stuff. And I grabbed him the other day. It was his birthday party. He got like $300 for his birthday. Like everybody like gave him cards and monies and he got some nice gifts. And he's like, he's really flexing on these gifts. And I grabbed him and I said, son, I said, this is all fun stuff. It's great to have a little bit of cash in your pocket and some nice shoes to wear that are cool. I said, but don't you ever forget that it is not your shoes or money that makes you cool. It is you. And in the eyes of your parents, and in the eyes of God, you are enough. And I think that we have to speak that kind of life into our children as much as we can, because if we forget and we slip up and we let them think that the money and the shoes and the haircuts and the Michael Jordan clothing is what makes them cool, it's when they start to slip and they take their eyes off of who their real father is.
That is so good. And the timing on that, Nick, for me, it couldn't have come better. I came in today and sat down with a heavy heart because of my son. He's 15 and he thinks he's the coolest. He thinks the haircut's the thing, and the list goes on and on. But what he hasn't done is surrender to God. He's rebelling against him. I will always love him. I'll always love him. I made him a promise that I will always reach down, son, and I'll pick you up off the ground. I'll always be there for you. Right now, it's been really hard because he is in that same mentality, but his choices are they're so poor right now. And that goes to all you dads.
Yeah.
Just know that when you look at somebody who has had victory over addiction, their problems don't go away.
No, they get twice as hard.
Now you're sober-minded.
Yeah.
Now you're dealing with your problem face to face. Now you're looking at your son who is doing drugs and drinking alcohol, and you're like, this is a problem. And I can't save him. I'm not Jesus. I can point towards that man running for that sheep and know that that's my son in that mud at 15. He can't have the relationship I have with God. That's my relationship. I want so badly for him to surrender to Jesus and give it all to him like I did. He hasn't yet. If he died today, he would not go to heaven. He has not surrendered to Jesus Christ. Those are hard words to say. And you talk about leading your kids. And you can lead them and point towards Jesus, but only Jesus Christ himself will save.
Yeah. We can plant the seeds. We can
plant, yes.
And I truly believe, Ben, that's what I'm trying to do with this. Just all cards on the table. That's what I'm trying to do with this podcast. In case anybody was really wondering, why does Nick do this podcast? It is to plant seeds inside of somebody that there is hope here.
Yes.
You know, and whether or not you turn your life over to God today is totally up to you. But I want you to know that when I got sober, I did. And it changed the entire trajectory of my life. So, yeah.
Yeah. And that's real. I mean, that's real. It's
I was in a situation where I had to go up and talk in front of a bunch of people the other day. And my pastor is Pastor John Fuller at Prairie Lakes Church. And I was nervous because I had never done it before. You know, in that setting, it was like 100 dudes. And he goes, have I ever, you know the story of Zacchaeus? And I was like, I think so. He goes, well, let me tell you real quick. He goes, Jesus came to town and there was this tax collector named Zacchaeus, and everybody knew he was basically a criminal. You know what I mean? Like, he's a tax collector and he taxes people, and nobody liked him. And Jesus was given a sermon, and he had to climb up this tree in order to see him because he was short and he was stubby, right? And Jesus saw him up there and he goes, hey, you up there, what's your name? said Zacchaeus. He's like, I'm coming to your house for dinner tonight. And everybody was up in arms. Like, what are you doing going to this guy's house? He didn't earn that, you know? And so he does. And he talks to him and changes the entire trajectory of this dude's life. His family's life changes a generation. And he John says, you know, Nick, it's a great story, but what nobody ever talks about is that somebody planted that tree. So go plant a tree. And that's what we have here.
Yeah.
Trying to plant some trees.
Planting seeds. Yep. The hill that bore the cross of the 3 men crucified was a hill placed there by God himself. God put that hill there that his own son would be slaughtered on. So what a great analogy. No one thinks about the tree that was planted. And my kids would keep singing that song, Zacchaeus was a wee little man, and they sing all that, but that is a great analogy. I like that. It's awesome.
Yeah.
But yeah, the seeds planted is critical. And I believe I saw a statistic one time at church talking about if a kid is led by the mother or the father, which one is the full source of their spiritual food? Is it if it's the mother, they have like a 30% chance statistically of following the Lord. But if it's the father, it's like 60. Now think about that. The father has that much. Like God gave us the ability, and he not just gave us, he purposed us to lead our children spiritually.
Yeah.
That's our job, to lead our kids spiritually, to point them towards the Savior and to God, and to, like, to your point, walk like that on a daily basis so they see what it's like to be a good husband and a good father, to see what it's like to forgive and ask for forgiveness.
Yeah.
That I have to go to my wife in front of them and say, honey, I'm sorry. Will you forgive me? I was out of line. They need to see that. And from the man, not the woman, but the man. So God gave us this ability. And he told us as men, you are to be the leaders of your household. You are the ones to lead your family spiritually. If you do not, the woman may, but just know that the man has a stronger ability to lead their kids to faith than the woman.
Yeah, what did Jesus say to Simon and Peter in Matthew 4:19? Come follow me, and I'll make you fishers of men.
Yeah.
So, here you go. Where are we going?
I'm just super thankful to be here. When you get going, it starts coming out, but I just want people to know there is so much hope for you. If you're listening today and the bottle was your morning, or a pill, or you've already looked at pornography this morning and you can't put it down.
Yeah.
And it's ruining your marriage, is like it's ruining your sex life.
Well,
because that's all you visualize is the porn scenes. I mean, trust me, if there's a sin out there, I feel like I've done it.
Amen.
I feel like I've lived it, short of just murdering somebody physically, but I've murdered people emotionally and emotionally, and
taken things.
Yeah. I mean, I'm all those things, and you will never understand it until when you surrender it, you'll realize it. But back to the hope. You know, if you're listening, you're one of those people. We're talking to you. We're extending our hand to you. Nick and Ben right now saying, look, tell somebody.
Yeah.
Just do it. Tell somebody and surrender.
Find yourself an accountability partner. I talk about this often. People are so terrified to do this. I was so scared to share my sin, whether it was alcoholism, drugs, whatever it was in my life that I had struggled with. Many other things. There's many, lust, all those things. It's so hard to share that with somebody, but you need to find somebody that you can, that's not so impressed with you that they won't tell you the truth about you.
Yes.
I think as men, we need to have that person in our lives, and it can be your wife, but it's also very good to have another man who's journeyed through some of the things that you have been through, or maybe they haven't yet, but make sure that they're not so impressed by you that they won't tell you the truth about what you're telling them, right?
Yep.
They don't look so far up to you that, that they can't hold you accountable.
Sure. And
finding an accountability partner is like step one in sobriety. And for me, it was anyways. It's also step one in overcoming any addiction. So you got to talk about it. You got to find somebody that you can talk with about it. And I'm one of those people that if somebody has something they want to talk about, I'm always throwing my hand up and saying, hey, come on over here. We can have a confidential, private conversation that just stays between you and I. Yep. I talk to so many dudes, and I know you do too, about some of this stuff. And the world needs that. Yep. And more people need to become that for others. We need peers.
Yeah. The fight, it's incredibly hard. But man, is it worth it?
Yeah.
When you can get to some soberness, when you start the fight and you fight with someone that, man, and what a great point. People who tell you the truth love you the most. It may not be what you want to hear.
No.
You're feeling, I mean, look at the Bible. The Bible stares at me. I mean, the cross is confrontational. It stares at my sin. Of course I'm gonna buck it and be depressed by it and be upset by it. But just know the ultimate love that you can share to somebody is telling them the truth.
Yeah.
Whether they want to hear it or not. And we don't do that enough. And I'll raise my hand and be the first person that says, look, I don't do that enough. I don't do it enough in my life to people. I'm a people pleaser. And that confronts me. It confronts the sin in my heart to go tell somebody and confront them about their sin if they're a believer, or to confront somebody like my son and say, hey, I'm going to lay this out for you because I'm fearful of his demeanor towards me. I want him to like me. I want to be his friend. And sometimes that's not what he needs. He needs a father.
Yeah.
And that's often how God treats us is not so much that we're going to give our lives to Jesus and every addiction is going to disappear and your world's going to be great. He's going to be a father that also is going to tell you the truth about yourself, but he provides the solution.
Yeah. God made us in his image, right? So I always try to kind of reverse psychology this thing. And as a father, I ask myself, what do I want the most from my children? It's not for them to be on the top of the podium in the sport that they're competing in. I'll promise you that. It's not for them to have the prettiest girlfriend in the school. It's not for them to be the most popular. You know what I want the most from my sons? Communication. I want to talk with them. I want them to be open and real with me. I want them to be authentic with me, because when they can be authentic with me, I can help them the most.
Yes.
That's when I can connect with them the most. If you bring me some real stuff, a real question, not just, hey, what's the answer to the equation, Dad? What's the answer? But more, Dad, how do I get there? That's a different question. It's a different kind of question. Yeah. Now, reverse psychology, what does God want the most from us? Prayer, communication. If we bring it to him, he can help us with it.
Yeah, that's so good. And I feel so convicted with you saying that, just because I feel like I've allowed one of my kids to consume 99% of his information through other people.
Yeah.
Because of that lack of communication. And when they consume it from their friends, and they consume it from the internet, and they consume it from their devices, and they consume it from all those things that are unhealthy, then you get that product.
Yeah.
Where there's no communication. They're learning their own.
There's no more eye contact.
There's no eye contact. The shame is thick, and it's not coming out, though. It's not being communicated, because now I got a problem. You know, now it's a hard one to unravel. So, and I wanted to share that because I want to be completely authentic. I didn't walk in here today with a cartwheel.
No.
I walked in today with a lot of shame and a lot of hurt in my heart because of the way in which I've lacked in maybe a lot of areas with my son. But God is good, and he will soften. I prayed before I walked in here, even for him, that he would soften ground for the conversation I'm going to have later with him. And, but yeah, I want to say thank you for those words. I feel like you do have, even doing this platform, have more words of wisdom, especially from a father, that you can give me, because you're putting in the work, and I need to put in more work, and I want to learn what that work looks like and what that work will, and I know it'll pay off. It's just hard work at first, because you won't see the fruit for a while. I also wanted to bring up what I told you earlier.
Yeah.
Domestic man. This podcast, I've been reached out by someone, and they're domestic, but they're not a man. They're a woman.
Yeah.
You're touching, Nick, women who have addictions with a domestic man podcast, which I totally understand your platform, where you go with this, and these conversations are so critical, and where your passion is. But I wanted you to know, and I want the listeners to know, if you're out there and you are a female, because I was approached by one that is now now it'd be like 290 some days. I pray sober from an addiction, a woman they're listening to. They're supporting their men. They're getting help themselves, because if you are addicted in your life, it controls your life, and it doesn't discriminate between a man or a woman or a race.
No.
Satan's playground, in the way he uses us and wants to hurt us, ruin our lives, destroy marriages, God's covenant, a marriage, man and a woman, the way he wants to destroy the whole system and bring it down one person at a time, woman or man, race, doesn't matter. He will do it through addictions, and your platform is reaching females. It's reaching other people. They're listening, Nick, to the words that are coming through these microphones, and it's having an impact on people. They're listening. And so I wanted to share that with you and the listeners, and know that if you're a female out there, just throw the word man out.
Yeah, this podcast is still for you.
This is domestic people. But that was just so sweet to hear that, because I also wanted to bring up something pretty critical, that I was critical of you. And I explained a little bit upstairs before we had the podcast of why. It wasn't critical because of an unloving criticalness. It's the pattern of the addict.
Mm-hmm.
And let me explain that. The Ben Schwartz deserved criticism from other people when I tried to do something good, because I didn't deserve it.
Yeah.
My pattern was destruction. My pattern was to try to do enough good to get what I wanted. Enough good to do something where it would help my heart for just a moment, but it was all self-gratification. It was all about me, and Ben. People sniffed it out. They sniffed it out like it was desperation, and they knew it. That was in me. So when I would be sober for 6 months, they knew, like in the movie A Star is Born, and the guy confronts him at the end. He's like, we all know that seltzer and water you're drinking is going to be a drink of alcohol soon. We all know it. They didn't trust him. He was sober at the time, and they rightfully didn't, because they saw the pattern of sobriety where he would get sober for a moment, but then get back on. Those people are struggling, but understand over time, you will win everyone over.
Growth.
Over time, in your consistency of being a follower of God, a podcast, a man who wants to share with people, they'll remember the old you, Nick. Like, you should remember the old Ben and be like, dude, is this guy really like, I mean, I saw this email. Everyone, I bet, criticized it. Like, dude, this is another Ben thing. I've seen this guy.
He's selling me.
He's selling me. He's gotten sober. He must have did something. He probably cheated on his wife. And now he's this new person. Understand and actually embrace the criticism or just because it happened to me fully and I deserved it.
Yeah.
But over time, when you remain sober and you're working on your faith and you're working on being a better dad, over time, people are going to look at it and they're like, dude, this isn't just a thing. This wasn't like a phase. He really changed. He's really doing it for good. He really wants people around him. He's reaching hands out now because he accepted someone else's hand and now he's extending it to other people. It's so inspiring to me. It's so inspiring to me, Nick, because I saw old Nick like you saw old Ben. We share that commonality that you saw what I was capable of and what I was doing before Jesus came into my life.
Yeah.
You saw all of it. And just know when you're out there and you're starting to fight, understand people are going to look at you and they're not going to believe. They won't be believers. Understand that's part of it. That's the destruction that you and I have caused. That's what we're capable of. We've destroyed all of our relationships. Why should anybody believe us? I've lied to everybody around me. I've destroyed my marriage. I've destroyed relationships. It was all for me. I don't want you to believe me yet. But when you truly change and you raise your hand and say, I have a problem, and you put yourself around people that will help you, and you start the fight, just block it all out and just know that over time will win people over because it'll show consistency in your fight. Yeah. And they will then look at you and be like, dude, he has changed. She has changed. She's different.
Yeah. Put your head down and do the work.
Yes.
And ask God for his help. Trust me. It gets you a lot further when you ask God for his help. I have a group of buddies that I work out with in the morning. This is how this all happened. Okay. So I have a friend and he's like, hey man, you should come work out with me. Right. And I was like, all right, I'll come work out with you if you go to church with me. And he was like, all right, I'm in. I was like, okay, cool. What time are we working out? He goes, 4 a.m. And I was like, oh, I'm out. I can't. He goes, no. You made the deal.
Peace.
So I started going to the gym, right? And there's another buddy there. And we all start kind of working out together at 4 o'clock in the morning. And now today we all pack like 2 rows of church together with our families and the people that we've got coming to church and working out with us, right? So it's super cool. But every morning we pray. We wrap our arms around each other. There's 3 or 4 of us. And we wrap our arms around each other in the morning. And pretty much every morning the prayer starts like this. God, I tried to do it my way and it didn't work. So now I'm giving it to you. And that's how we start our day. 4 o'clock in the morning, pretty much every single day. So,
that's a mic drop.
Yeah.
God, my way does not work. And it won't. And that's been a tale as old as time, that a human's way does not work. That's a sweet prayer.
Yeah.
And it's real.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a good way to start the day. I have to ask, man, what's since you've gotten sober, what's been your favorite part of being a father?
Well, I'm there.
Yeah.
I'm there. I'm present. I do remember a memory when I had just gotten divorced and I was in the thick of all of it. When my 2 oldest were young, 2 to 4, 3 to 5 range, I just remember wanting my alcohol so badly that I wouldn't even read them books at night. I was racing to the basement, and this was just something that was in my way. reading my kid a book. I remember reading one book and they would want two, and I'd be like, nope, peace. I'm out because I need mine. And I remember that and how that hurt me so much inside. And then now I read my kids. I mean, just something as simple as just being sober, and I'm sitting there and I get to fully see them. And I fully want to be around my family right now. I fully have my wife as my best friend. I fully have these things. If you want to talk about hope and why you do the fight, that's why you do the fight.
Yeah.
When you are the best in you and you are sober minded and you get through the addiction to the side where your mind starts to clear and you are now capable of being a great father and a great husband, and you can start moving your hats off and on, work hat, husband hat, father hat, and then you go bell to bell and hit the bed at night, there's no greater purpose in life.
Yeah.
All the purposes I've been looking for my whole life, the bottle, the sex, the drug, I found full purpose in what God wanted it to be: a marriage, family, children. And is it a lot of work? Heck yeah, it is. Do I hate it some days? Sure do. Wouldn't change it because I'm fully sober and I'm a father and a husband. I'm able to put the hats on and off. I have energy to do it. That's the best part. The best part is when you get there. And believe me, everyone can get there. Don't think you're ever too far gone. You can get there, and then what sweet memories you make and ways in which you see your kids and can fully enjoy them. And your marriage is where it's supposed to be, communicating. And do I do bonehead things all the time? Am I an idiot? Every day.
Human condition.
Do I sin? Every single day. Do I look at girls twice sometimes? Absolutely. Do I still? When you start turning from it, though, you get this reward. You just get blessed, so blessed by God, and He just gives you the joy that He purposed for us on this earth before we ruined it.
Yeah.
And that's a sweet marriage.
Yeah.
Kids that look up to you and just want to be around you and wrap their legs around you, even though your back hurts.
Dude, my favorite thing is my wife and I will be like, we'll go to bed, and the little one always comes in. He's 5. So he's like, give me one more thing, one more thing.
Yep.
And my favorite thing is to be like, dude, just get up here and get under the covers and let's talk for a little bit. Yeah. And that is like that's the best. And then I exchange a glance with my wife in those moments, and she smiles. And Ben, I got to tell you how much that fills my heart and fills my cup, because I was very close to not having that at one point in time, and losing that because of my addiction, because I was going to put it first, because I was going to put the ring on and go back with my precious.
Yeah.
I didn't see how precious the rest of the world was.
Right.
And how much the rest of the family could be to me.
It is.
So
now my wife might have a different look. All right. So if I welcomed in a kid, she might look at me with a scowl and be like, dude, he needs to go. But I understand what you're saying. The precious, those moments, man, where you see the little head and it's just above the bed. I mean, it's just above, you just see the little noodle, right? And they're just begging for a little more time.
Yeah.
They just want they want to fight sleep a little bit longer. One more book.
Got one more question.
One more question. And it's not a right, man. It's a privilege that we've been given to scoop that kid off the ground. Come in, let's talk, and have your wife, your child, and you for a few more moments before the eyes go down. It is a very sweet moment, and you get those now.
Yeah.
You get those. God gave you those moments now. He gave you clarity. He gave you armor, Nick, to fight every day. He gave me armor to put on. He put on my belt, my sword, Now, sometimes I get pierced.
Yeah.
And He pulls the arrow out, dusts me off, get back in the game. And I just love that memory you share, man, because I get to see those every day. They happen to me on a daily, and it's worth fighting for.
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah. So any words of advice you want to leave the world with today?
think all the great advice I've ever been given was by the people who love me the most. They're in my circle, wanted the best for me. They're hard truths, but it takes a certain heart to, and a certain level of humility to understand how flawed we all are.
Yeah.
That when you think that you are not as bad as that, or you think I want to get to this, there is no playing field when it comes to sin and the way in which it works through us and what it's capable of and what each one of us is capable of doing. We're capable of cheating. We're capable of addictions and capable. The list goes on and on. But I guess I don't have any advice for anybody other than to just hear the conversations that we had and know that for me personally, all I can speak of is for me in my life personally, the man chasing that lamb in that screen to my right is what saved me.
Yeah.
I don't have any glory to give anyone. I don't have a one up on anybody. I've done it all. I've been through all the sin. I've tried this world and what it can give me. I've tasted it all. Tasted sweet like honey at the beginning, and it always left me wanting more. It never fulfilled my cup like Jesus Christ did. When I drank his water, it was life water. When I ate from his food, I was never hungry again. This world didn't change. It was hard, but I can go at it sober-minded because of him. I don't have power over myself to quit an addiction. I don't believe anyone does. I believe you need someone, and not someone, in my opinion, you need God himself, Jesus Christ, who took it all. He can bear the weight of your shame and your addiction. He will gladly take it because he's taken it from millions of people. He died for it. He wants you. He wants a relationship with you. He wants to send you into this world, and he wants you to do the lifting for him someday. But he's got to get you right first. He's got to get you sober minded first. He will do it. He'll lift for you. He died for you. God sent his own son to die for you. What a sweet story. Tell me another story or another God in any other religion. You can't make it up. A God sends his son to a slaughterhouse by men who rejected him, and that's your savior? It is your savior because he rose so you can rise. Understand that Jesus Christ, to me, is the key. He deserves all the glory. He'll make you sober. He'll confront you. He'll conflict you. He'll do all those things that you're afraid of. But you will find what Nick and I described on the other end, the greatest gift, other than heaven itself, a relationship with God, the greatest gifts. You'll be given things in this world that you never deserved. The little head bobbing above your bed. A wife that looks at you and loves you.
Yeah.
Because you are now a man. Like you are now the man she's been waiting for.
Yeah.
Your kids, you're present, you're there. That's not from me. It's not from you, Nick. It's from God. He gives you those things. Just don't give up. You need to speak up. This platform is speaking up on the behalf of you. If you just so choose to take it and reach your hand. Samwises are reaching everywhere for you. Just take the hand, man. Take it. God is reaching for you. He's reaching for every one of us. And all he's asking is one simple prayer. That's how crazy it is. He's asking for one prayer for you to believe.
Yeah.
That's it. If you believe, your life will change. It's that simple. It seems simple, and it is that simple. If you believe with your heart, you'll be given all the gifts Nick and I have described today. You'll be given the Holy Spirit. You'll be given armor to fight sin. You will be given eyes to see. You'll be given ears to hear. You will hear his word.
Yeah.
You will drink from his cup. You will eat his food, and you will never be hungry again. You will never thirst, and you will fight. You will fight this world. And it will be the greatest journey you'll ever go on because it's not your journey, it's God's.
Yeah.
God will purpose your life in ways that you thought never possible. He'll put you in front of people who are desperate, and you'll be able to help them in his name. And it's incredible, man.
It's remarkable.
It's not of our world. It's not of our thinking. We're too stupid to think in those ways, and gladly so, because I just want, again, the wisdom is don't rely on yourself. Know how dumb you are. Know how much shame and sin you have and what you're capable of, but know that there's a surrender to it that you can accept today if you just choose to say so.
Yeah.
And it's simple. Jesus, I need you. I'm done of being the God of myself. I'm done chasing this world. It's gotten me nowhere. It just hurt me more. I've hurt myself. I've hurt the people around me. I'm surrendering it all to you today because I can't do this myself. I can't do it anymore. God, I'm going to choose you to lead me in this. That's as simple as it is. My last thing is this. If you choose to do that, like I told Chris Timms one day, if you choose to do that, go to everyone you've wronged and ask them to forgive you. Make a list. I did. Chris, I told Chris to do it. I said, Chris, now that you're choosing sobriety, you've hurt people. You've hurt your wife. You've hurt your relationships. Go to every one of them. Whether they choose to accept forgiveness from you is up to them. But in your humility, go to every single person and say, will you please forgive me? I've hurt you. I've wronged you. I cheated you. I stole from you. And don't have a but behind it. Don't say, but I was addicted. Yeah. Throw it all away. You created it, and you can be forgiven for it because there's a Savior that forgave you, and now you will be asked and called to forgive and ask for that forgiveness from other people, and they will forgive you. The people that love you the most, they will.
Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah.
Right on. Thanks, Ben.
No, thank you.
Yeah.
What a humbling experience. What an amazing podcast. I pray that this radiates to people. I hope you continue to bring people in like the Chad Whalens and the Tims, the ones I've listened to. They're just remarkable people with stories that are of victory.
Yeah. I wanted to say this earlier, but we go on and on, but you've inspired me, man. You had something to do with that mustard seed that got inside of me at some point in time. So,
well, thank you very much. I appreciate it.
If you're hearing this message, you've listened to the entire episode. And for that, I want to thank you with all my heart. I hope you enjoyed it. And if you did, please leave us a review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. It really helps us out. If you have questions about getting sober, parenting, or personal growth, email Nick at domesticdadproject.com with any questions about cleaning up the messes you've made. And if your question is discussion worthy, we'll feature it in an upcoming episode. Don't forget, you can watch any of these videos uncut and unedited, filmed in my studio from our YouTube channel. Just go to YouTube and search for Domestic Dad Project. Also, please follow us on Facebook or share this episode on your social media. You can also join our community by grabbing some merch. It means the world to me to know that this podcast is making a difference in someone's life. And if this episode inspired you to get sober or simply become a better version of yourself, you can claim your free 60-minute coaching session by visiting www.domesticdadproject.com. Let's continue supporting each other to break the stigma around dads reaching out for help, to get our lives on track while navigating the obstacles of fatherhood. Until next time, keep cleaning up the mess.